in the beginning it felt like everything was falling into place. He was attentive, funny, and made me feel cared for. We went on thoughtful dates, he'd text me good morning, and he really seemed to be putting in effort. After about a month, I felt comfortable enough to invite him over and spend the night. The next morning, though, his whole energy shifted. It's hard to describe, but it felt like he'd crossed some finish line in his mind. He stopped being curious about me. Instead of asking about my day, he made comments like, "You really like being in control, don't you? With your little apartment and your organized life?" At first, I thought he was joking, but the tone was different, more smug than playful. Over the next few weeks, it became even clearer. He didn't plan dates anymore, he just expected to come over. He acted less invested, like intimacy meant he no longer had to try. And sometimes he'd say things that felt intentionally diminishing, like he wanted to knock me down a peg. That was the moment it clicked. He hadn't been showing me his real self at all. He had been performing, waiting to get what he wanted, and once he did, the mask slipped. So I ended it. And honestly, I felt relief more than sadness. I realized how important it is to pay attention not just to how someone treats you before intimacy, but how they act after. That's when you see who they really are. I'm sharing this because I wish someone had told me sooner. If you feel that sudden shift, trust your gut. Love should feel safe and steady, not like someone conquered you. Moving on to the next one. I made my breast reconstruction surgeon cry with laughter. After the long process of a double mastectomy, I finally got my permanent breast implants in, and I was very happy with them. As a bonus, I discovered that since they were put directly on top of my chest muscles, I could do a neat trick. I can twerk my breasts one at a time or together, making them dance quite vigorously. I went for my checkup and said, "Hey doc, look what I can do now," and showed off their bouncy dancing skills. He literally dropped his chart and bent over, laughing until tears came into his eyes. He said I was the first patient to do that to him, and he couldn't stop laughing the rest of the visit. I encourage other patients of this type of surgery to try it. It's quite fun and entertaining. Edit. Thanks for the kind comments and award. Guess I can say I won an award for bouncing my boobies now. Note, for those who save video or it didn't happen, I get it, but I'm not going to post my boobs all over the internet. Okay, story number 3. My husband slipped last night, and now I don't even know who I'm married to. We were eating dinner last night. Nothing fancy, just pasta and a bottle of cheap wine. He was on his phone like usual, and I was half annoyed, because he barely looked at me. Then he chuckled and said out loud, "Wow, I can't believe she actually texted back." I froze and asked, "Who?" And he looked like he swallowed poison. He stammered and said, "Oh, just a coworker." He went to the bathroom right after, and his phone lit up on the table. The message popped up, and I swear my whole body went cold. It said, "Can't wait to see you again," with a heart. I didn't touch his phone, I didn't open anything, but I knew right then my marriage was cracked wide open. I just sat there, staring at the pasta going limp on the plate, while my chest felt like it was caving in. 7 years together, and I thought I knew him better than anyone. Now I feel like I have been sharing a bed with a stranger. I haven't said a word yet. I don't even know if I want to scream or throw up or just go silent forever. I don't know how to even process this.
Fourth story, titled, "She complained about my inappropriate outfit, so now her boyfriend isn't allowed over at all." I live in student housing with a shared hallway. If I am just stepping out to brush my teeth or grab something from the kitchen, I usually just wear whatever I'm already in, like usually an oversized tee or a tank top, basically. Not exactly runway material, but comfy, of course. One evening, I walked out in a loose shirt and shorts to throw away some trash. A girl stopped me later and said, kind of awkwardly, "Hey, could you cover up more when you were in the hall? My boyfriend's over and it makes him uncomfortable." I was not looking at something like with much attention, so I just said, "Okay, cool," and let it go. As simple as that. Coming to the next day, my roommate told me she heard this same girl in the lounge making fun of me, telling people I had been prancing around half naked on purpose, like seriously on purpose, she said, and she even imitated me. Later that night, she and her friends looked me up and down and giggled when I walked by. Then the entire building got an email from the RA about some complaints of inappropriate clothing and reminding everyone to dress properly in shared spaces. That annoyed me because her boyfriend doesn't even live in our building, but in fact, due to this year's rules, outside guests aren't supposed to be here at all. So what I did, I sent in my own anonymous complaint. A few days later, the RA followed up. They will now be checking IDs of guests and cracking down on non-residents hanging out in the halls. So yeah, she wanted me to cover up for her boyfriend. Now she doesn't even get to bring him over. Lol. Problem solved with full settlement.
Fifth story, titled, My Girlfriend's Ultimate Betrayal, How I Found Out She Was Cheating with 4 Guys. So yeah, never thought I'd be posting here, but man, I need to get this off my chest. Been with my girl for 3 years and was legit saving for a ring and everything. Then her phone starts blowing up at 2 a.m. like every night. She's all, it's just work stuff, but like at 2 a.m., come on. I know everyone says don't go through your partner's phone, but whatever, I did it anyway, and holy crap, my life just exploded right there. Wasn't just one dude, 4 different guys, all these separate convos with pegs I never want to see again, them planning hookups, and worst part, they were all joking about me. One was literally my best friend since we were kids. Another was her boss, classic, our frickin' neighbor down the hall, and that gay friend she was always hanging out with who, surprise, surprise, wasn't actually gay. This had been going on for like 8 months while I'm working double shifts to save for our future and stuff. When I finally confronted her, I thought she'd at least try to deny it or cry or something. Nope. She straight up laughed and was like, it took you long enough to figure it out. Said I was too predictable and she was bored. My so-called best friend texted later saying, it wasn't personal and these things happen. Like, what the fuck, man? I just grabbed my stuff that night while she went out to clear her head, which probably meant hooking up with one of them, TBH. It's been like 2 months now. Moved to a different city, blocked all their asses, started therapy because I was messed up. Then yesterday she calls from some random number crying about how she made a huge mistake. Turns out, boss dude fired her after getting what he wanted, neighbor moved away, my ex-friend got busted by his girlfriend, and the gay friend ghosted her once he got bored. She had the nerve to ask if we could work things out. I just laughed and hung up. Some things you just can't fix, and finding out your girlfriend's been living a whole secret life with 4 other dudes, yeah, that's definitely one of them. 6th story, titled, I think someone has been living in my house without me knowing. I live alone in a small 1-bedroom house. I work second shift, so I usually get home around midnight. The first weird thing I noticed was my kitchen chair being slightly pulled out one night when I came home. I thought maybe I'd just forgotten. Then it started happening more often. Little things. Cabinet doors open when I swear I'd close them. My cereal box moved to the other side of the counter. The hallway light on when I never turned it on. I convinced myself I was just tired from work. Until last week. I walked in and there was a half-empty glass of water on the counter. I don't drink water out of glasses, I always use a bottle. I actually stood there for like 10 seconds just staring at it. No broken locks, no signs of a break-in. Then I started noticing it, my bedroom door being cracked open when I always leave it shut. The faint sound of footsteps at night, like someone walking barefoot down the hall, always around 3:30 a.m. Yesterday, I installed a cheap motion sensor camera in the hallway. Last night, I woke up to the alert on my phone. The video showed my hallway light flicking on and a shadow moving from the kitchen toward my room. Not fast, just walking, calm. But here's the thing that's messing me up the most. The door never opened. The camera never caught anyone entering or leaving the house. I checked every window and door this morning, all locked, no damage, nothing missing. But the glass of water on the counter was full again. I don't know if I should call the police or a therapist.
7th story, titled, My neighbors say they've known my son for years. I've never had children. How old must he be now? 8? 9? I stared at my neighbor, unsure what she was asking. She read the confusion on my face. Your cute little guy. I saw him biking down the lane earlier. He must be old enough for grade 4 now, right? Mrs. Babbage was a bit on the older side, but I never thought she had shown signs of dementia. Not until now. I wasn't exactly sure what to say. She proceeded to stare at me, tilting her head, as if I was the one misremembering. I awkwardly opened my mouth. "Oh, right, my little guy." She brightened. "Yes, he must be in grade 4, right?" "Sure. Yes, he is." "What a cute little guy," she said in return to watering her flowers. It was an odd, slightly sad moment. I wondered if her husband had seen glimmers of this too. I could only hope that this was a momentary blip and not the sign of anything Alzheimer's related. I took the rest of my groceries out of my car and entered home. I had a long day of teaching, and I just wanted to sit back, unwind, and watch something light on TV. But as soon as I took off my first shoe, I smelt it. Something burning on the stove. Something burning with lots of cheese on it? The hell? I dashed over to the kitchen and almost fell down, partially because I was wearing only one shoe, but also because there was a scrawny little boy frying Kraft dinner. I let out a half scream, but very quickly I composed myself into the same assertive adult who taught at a university. "What? Excuse me, who are you? What are you doing here?" The boy's blonde, willow-like hair whipped around his face as he looked at me with equal surprise. "Papa, what do you mean?" I'm here." He was a scared, confused child, and I couldn't quite place the bizarre inflection of his words. "Do you want some KD, Papa? Have some." Was that a Russian accent? It took me a second to realize he was wearing an oversized shirt that looked just like mine. Was he wearing my clothes? I held out my palms like I would at a lecture, my standard "everyone settle down" gesture, and cleared my throat. "I'm sorry, I don't know who you are, or what this is." The boy widened his eyes, still frightened by my intensity. He stirred the food with a wooden spoon. "It's KD, Papa. Your favorite, chili cheese kind. Don't you remember?" His name was Dmitri, and he claimed to be my son. Apparently, at some point there had been a mother, but he didn't remember much about her. He only remembered me. "You've been Papa my whole life, Papa." I tried having a sit-down conversation. In fact, I tried to have many sit-down conversations where I explained to Dmitri that would be impossible. But it always ended with him clutching me with impassioned tears, begging me to remember him. The confusion only got worse when my mother called. "How is my grandson doing?" I didn't know how to reply. The conversation grew awkward and tense until eventually I clarified my predicament. "Mom, what are you talking about? I don't have a son. I've never had a son." My mother gasped a little, then laughed and scolded me, saying I shouldn't joke around like that, because of course I've always had a son, a smart little guy who will be celebrating 9 this weekend. I hung up. I stood petrified in my own kitchen, staring at this strange, expectant Slavic child. For the next 10 minutes, all I could do was ask where his parents were, and he just continued to act frightened, like any authentic kid might, and replied with the same question, "How did you forget me, Papa?" My method wasn't getting me anywhere, so I decided to play along. I cleared my head with a shot of espresso. I told him my brain must have been scrambled from overworking, and I apologized for not remembering I was his father. He brightened immediately. "It's okay, Papa, it's okay." He gave me a hug. "You always work so hard." The tension dropped further as Dmitri finished making the noodles and served himself some. I politely declined and watched him eat. And he watched me watch him eat. "So you're okay now? You're not angry?" His accent was so odd. "No," I said. "I'm not angry. I was just a little scrambled." His eyes shimmered, looking more expectant. "So we can be normal now?" A wan chill trickled down my neck. I didn't really know what to say, but for whatever reason, I did not want to say, "Yes, we can be normal now," because this was not normal. Far from it. This child was not my son. He started playing with his food and quivered a little, like a worried mouse seeking reassurance. Eventually, I said, "Everything will be fine. No need to stress. Enjoy your noodles." To my shock and dismay, I discovered that Dmitri also had his own room. My home office had somehow been replaced by a barren, clay-walled chamber filled with linen curtains, old wooden toys, and a simple bed. The smell of bread and earth wafted throughout. I watched him play with his blocks and spinning tops for about a half hour before he started to yawn and say he wanted to go to sleep. It was the strangest thing tucking him in. He didn't want to switch to pajamas or anything. He just sort of hopped into his straw bed and asked me to hold his hand. Dimitri's fingers were cold, slightly clammy little things. It was very bizarre comforting him like my own son, but it appeared to work. He softened and lay still. He didn't ask for any lullaby or bedtime story. He just wanted to hold my hand for a minute. "Thank you, Papa. I'm so glad you're here. So glad you can be my Papa. Good night." I inched my way out of the room and watched him through the crack of his door. At about 9:30, he gave small, childlike snores. He had fallen asleep. Cautiously, I called Pat, my coworker with whom I shared close contact. She had the same reaction as my mother. "Harlan, of course you have a son, from your marriage to Svetlana." "My marriage to who?" "You met her in Moscow, when you were touring Europe." It was true that I had guest lectured 15 years ago across the UK, Germany, and Russia. I was awarded a grant for it. But I only stayed in Moscow for 3 days. I never met anyone named Svetlana. "Don't be weird, Harlan. Come on." Pat's conviction was very disturbing. "You and Svetlana were together for many years." "We were? How many?" "Look, I know the divorce was hard, but you shouldn't pretend your ex-wife doesn't exist." "I'm not pretending. I'm being serious." "I don't remember her." "Then get some sleep." I sipped on my second espresso of the night. "But I have slept. I'm fine." "Well, then I don't get what this joke is. Knock it off. It's creepy." "I'm not joking. I'll see you tomorrow for the birthday." "Birthday?" "Yes, your son's birthday. Jesus Christ. Good night, and get some sleep." I didn't sleep that night. My efforts were spent scouring the filing cabinets and drawers throughout my house. I had credit card bills covering school supplies, kids' clothing shops, and costlier groceries. I even had pictures of Dmitri hung around the walls from various ages. It's like everything was conforming to this new reality. The harder I looked for clues to disprove my fatherhood, the more evidence I found confirming it.
9th story, titled, "The People Upstairs Won't Stop Singing Happy Birthday. It's been 5 hours." I don't usually work on Sundays, but I needed some extra cash, so I took an early shift. I came home at around 2 p.m. I live in this apartment building. My apartment is on the first floor, along with another one that belongs to this dude who's rarely home. There's Mrs. Rogue's place on the ground floor, and then the second floor has 2 other flats. one owned by an elderly couple and the other by this family. I don't really see that often, directly above me. Sometimes I hear the kids in the morning moaning about having to get ready for school and then stomping down the stairs. Sometimes I hear hushed voices and dishes clattering. After 10 p.m., everything usually goes quiet. I got to my door, and as I was searching for my keys in my bag, I could hear voices upstairs. They were hushed and a little tense, stressing the words and mixing them together. I couldn't really make out what they were saying, but they seemed to be talking about something really important. Now, keep in mind that I've never seen these people before. I assumed they were a family because I kept hearing the kids in sounds that I generally attribute to a family home. It's not like I've personally met them, I just assumed. Anyway, as I said, I finally got a hold of my keys and unlocked the door. Yet I didn't immediately step inside after I opened it. I don't know why I let it swing open and remained there listening for 2 more seconds, but I'm somewhat glad I did. The moment the door was heard, the voices upstairs stopped. Completely. As if they were listening to me now. I remained still. We all studied the silence for a while. I heard a singular step on the stairs above. That's when my back went cold and my muscles tensed up for whatever reason. I got the sudden urge to just go inside and shut the door behind me, which I did. Afterwards, I started putting some groceries in the fridge and doing some errands around the house. Faintly at first, then stronger, I started hearing this birthday song upstairs. I smiled inside. They were planning the birthday man. That's why they were so precautious, so nervous. It sounded like there were around 5 to 6 people singing, maybe. Happy birthday, dear Jonah. That was cute. When they finished, they started again. I did find it weird, but I assumed that the kid had asked for it again. Kids love blowing out candles and whatever. It was an awfully long song. It kept looping until reaching its conclusion, just like the first time. It had a lot of unnecessary runs and filler and extra lyrics. When they finished, a little pause followed. Then they started again, in the exact same way. Fucking weird family, I thought. And by that time, I'd gotten annoyed, so I just put on my headphones and laid down on the couch. I fell asleep at around 4 or 5 p.m. I woke up from the nap disoriented. Man, after-work naps hit the hardest. I'd slept until around 8 p.m., and the sun was peeking at me from behind some buildings. A sunset that was more blue than red. A melancholy and confusion that reminded me of how liminal your house felt when you would go to sleep after school and wake up with a sore throat and a huge pillow mark on your face. With your mood ruined, your mother suddenly calling you out to go to dinner. I swallowed, staring blankly at the window highlighted in gold and rum. I rubbed my eyes, then massaged my face. I stood up to get a glass of water, walked barefoot to the kitchen that was now sunken in that specific 8 p.m. darkness, and stood still and silent, not knowing what I wanted from my life. Then, I finally registered one important detail. The folks upstairs were still singing Happy Birthday. I listened for a while, unsure of what my reaction should be. I wondered if they had some recording playing on a loop, but that wasn't really the case, as each version sounded different from the previous. They really were weird, or maybe their kid was just eccentric. Maybe they were practicing for some performance. I started thinking, as I said, I hadn't personally met these people before, so I had no idea what they did. Maybe they were really practicing. I put on my headphones and went on trying to make some sort of dinner, even though I wasn't really hungry and my throat still hurt. I ate, watched my show, then took a shower. Their singing had started to piss me off. It was now approaching 10 p.m., and I felt the need to go upstairs and tell them to quit it. I'm not confrontational. I really don't like telling people they upset me, and most don't have an appropriate reaction at all. I didn't want to talk to them, so I called my mom.
I started telling her about my day, but she interrupted me, asking about the people upstairs. Yeah, they've been doing it for hours. I don't know, it's starting to really get on my nerves. Well, go up to them and knock. Aren't the other residents annoyed? The old people upstairs? I'm sure they wanted to sleep by now. Maybe I could just put on some music. That could cover them up. But do you want to listen to music? No, not really. Then why do it to please them? Go upstairs, Michaela. I sighed and reluctantly agreed. After hanging up, I put on a sweater and unlocked my front door. The moment I opened it, the air felt a little colder. I stared at the dark hallway, illuminated by the ray of light from my door and another faint light coming from upstairs. I went up the stairs. The second floor was more animated than the first. The door to the family's apartment was slightly open and I could see light and movement behind. I slowly approached it, then peeked inside. I could see a hallway with balloons and confetti peacefully floating around. A faint smell of candles and sweetness lingered out. I didn't want to disturb too much, so I tried to be discreet while I quietly and almost imperceptibly pushed the door slightly more. The small hallway made way to a dining room. The shadows were dancing on the walls as people clapped around the table and sang. On the table was a cake with pink and purple frosting, sprinkles, and some writing I couldn't really decipher. The song carried on, but was hoarser than I remembered it. People were smiling, swaying from side to side at the person sitting in front of the cake. The lighting was dim and pleasant, its only source being the candles. The people around were a little tense, but overall it reminded me of my own birthdays as a kid. Some boxes lay scattered on the floor. I tried to take a better look at the boxes or the kid. The kid looked like a young boy with a big birthday hat on. He, I think, could have been 10 or 12, and his face was round and stretched into a big smile. I stared at the teeth. I don't know what prompted me to make that observation, but he had adult teeth that were rotten and yellow sticking out of his mouth in abnormal directions. His eyes were wide and red, as if he'd been crying for a while. I don't remember seeing him blink at all in the minutes that I watched that felt like hours. He looked really shaken and tense. I'd never seen a child like that before. Never in my life. All the courage I had before peeking through the door had evaporated. I must have zoned out watching the scene when I was pulled away from my trance. The kid shifted his eyes from the candles, which had now almost completely melted, and looked straight at me. I felt seen like I'd never been before. My heart completely collapsed, leaving a painful knot in my chest as I made eye contact with the child. His smile slowly faded, turning into a grimace. I wanted to run, but I was somehow frozen in place. Suddenly, he blew out the candles, and the room was engulfed in darkness. I heard something shuffle in the dark towards me, gasped and shut the door behind me as I practically jumped down the stairs. The shuffling and scratching followed. I gripped the door and slammed it behind me as something slammed into it from the other side. Eyes wide and unfocused, I barely managed to lock it as the banging started. The song upstairs had stopped. I looked through the peephole. The hallway was completely dark now, but I could make out the details of the face I'd looked at before in the dimly lit dining room. Only now, we were at eye level, which was impossible since that was a kid. Had it? Or had it done just a person? The more I thought, the more I realized I had no idea what prompted me to assume it had been a kid. The round face, childish clothing. Trying to decipher the memory meant analyzing every detail of that horrible face, a thing I didn't want to do. The banging turned to scratching. I yelled I was going to call the police. My voice died in my throat. The banging was so strong that it was undoubtedly going to break down my door. Suddenly, I heard a distinct sound upstairs. The banging and scratching instantly stopped. It was a door opening. The elderly couple's door. "Hey, What on earth are you doing? It is the middle of the night. I saw that kid, walk upstairs. Really? This is it for me? Quit it before I call the police. It's enough that I have to hear your kid's tantrums every day, lady, but... The voice abruptly stopped. I listened, barely breathing. No scream, no sound. Nothing. Faint scratching.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're stepping into another mix of Minecraft and Reddit stories, that strange balance between peaceful building and pure internet chaos. There's just something oddly relaxing about shaping a quiet world while listening to the madness people share about their own lives. So grab a drink, settle in, and let's explore a few stories that might make you smile, or completely lose faith in humanity. Honestly, I can't tell which way it'll go, but that's exactly what makes it worth diving into. All right, let's begin with our first story. This one's titled, "He Changed After We Slept Together, and That's When I Knew I Had to End It." I was dating this guy last year, and in the beginning it felt like everything was falling into place. He was attentive, funny, and made me feel cared for. We went on thoughtful dates, he'd text me good morning, and he really seemed to be putting in effort. After about a month, I felt comfortable enough to invite him over and spend the night. The next morning, though, his whole energy shifted. It's hard to describe, but it felt like he'd crossed some finish line in his mind. He stopped being curious about me. Instead of asking about my day, he made comments like, "You really like being in control, don't you? With your little apartment and your organized life?" At first, I thought he was joking, but the tone was different, more smug than playful. Over the next few weeks, it became even clearer. He didn't plan dates anymore, he just expected to come over. He acted less invested, like intimacy meant he no longer had to try. And sometimes he'd say things that felt intentionally diminishing, like he wanted to knock me down a peg. That was the moment it clicked. He hadn't been showing me his real self at all. He had been performing, waiting to get what he wanted, and once he did, the mask slipped. So I ended it. And honestly, I felt relief more than sadness. I realized how important it is to pay attention not just to how someone treats you before intimacy, but how they act after. That's when you see who they really are. I'm sharing this because I wish someone had told me sooner. If you feel that sudden shift, trust your gut. Love should feel safe and steady, not like someone conquered you. Moving on to the next one. I made my breast reconstruction surgeon cry with laughter. After the long process of a double mastectomy, I finally got my permanent breast implants in, and I was very happy with them. As a bonus, I discovered that since they were put directly on top of my chest muscles, I could do a neat trick. I can twerk my breasts one at a time or together, making them dance quite vigorously. I went for my checkup and said, "Hey doc, look what I can do now," and showed off their bouncy dancing skills. He literally dropped his chart and bent over, laughing until tears came into his eyes. He said I was the first patient to do that to him, and he couldn't stop laughing the rest of the visit. I encourage other patients of this type of surgery to try it. It's quite fun and entertaining. Edit. Thanks for the kind comments and award. Guess I can say I won an award for bouncing my boobies now. Note, for those who save video or it didn't happen, I get it, but I'm not going to post my boobs all over the internet. Okay, story number 3. My husband slipped last night, and now I don't even know who I'm married to. We were eating dinner last night. Nothing fancy, just pasta and a bottle of cheap wine. He was on his phone like usual, and I was half annoyed, because he barely looked at me. Then he chuckled and said out loud, "Wow, I can't believe she actually texted back." I froze and asked, "Who?" And he looked like he swallowed poison. He stammered and said, "Oh, just a coworker." He went to the bathroom right after, and his phone lit up on the table. The message popped up, and I swear my whole body went cold. It said, "Can't wait to see you again," with a heart. I didn't touch his phone, I didn't open anything, but I knew right then my marriage was cracked wide open. I just sat there, staring at the pasta going limp on the plate, while my chest felt like it was caving in. 7 years together, and I thought I knew him better than anyone. Now I feel like I have been sharing a bed with a stranger. I haven't said a word yet. I don't even know if I want to scream or throw up or just go silent forever. I don't know how to even process this.
Fourth story, titled, She Complained About My Inappropriate Outfit, so now her boyfriend isn't allowed over at all. I live in student housing with a shared hallway. If I am just stepping out to brush my teeth or grab something from the kitchen,